Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in here to episode 11 of Nudawn, a Final Fantasy XI podcast. Before we get started, I just want to apologize for the audio track of myself in this episode. The source file got a little out of whack, so the quality is not what it normally is. Beyond that, we hope in 2021 to be upgrading to some new recording software. So if you'd like to support the channel, I'll put the link in the description to be able to do so. And if you'd like a shout out for that, just make sure you leave a message in there when you do that donation. But other than that, enjoy the episode. Tonight, we're going to try to structure it in a way that goes through some of the highlights from the patches for each month and kind of lead up to then kind of recapping our thoughts versus kind of doing it in reverse. And then we will go into what we want to look forward towards next year. But before we go into anything, I wanted to start off with, I was going back through and reading the interview from 2019, the real long one that Gamerscape did. And there was one interesting quote that kind of maybe reminded me on the perspective or the direction of the game, at least for the foreseeable future that they're wanting to go. So we're not going to go through it, but I'm going to give you the, what the response was and kind of keep that in the back of your mind as we go through some of these things. So this was Matsui. He said, we don't necessarily want to stir up the jobs. If the rotations up until now become useless, it isn't good. We want the spectrum of gameplay to widen by having more options of gameplay or battles with enemies that were reasonably harder becoming easier. So think about that, and then think about as we go through some of the changes, and we will wrap back around to some of those thoughts. So, all right, 2020. Obviously a mess of a year in real life, but let's just start in January and kind of go through some of the things. So in January, there were really three what I would call notable things that we can take note of. And before we go through these points, another thing I wanted to make was, as I was going through and deciding what the audience for, or who maybe would be an intended audience, I think this year's theme would be anyone who maybe dropped out in 2019 and looking to maybe pick the game back up going into 2021. I think this is going to be a great listen for you, because it's going to give you a high-level overview of the relevant things that came about this year. So, January. So first thing we had was changes to domain invasion. So do you all keep up with DI now?
I'm long done with it, fella.
Yeah,
Absolutely not.
I think this was the update that introduced Miru, that dragon which can occasionally spawn as a metric shit ton of HP. I think.
So it did a couple things. The biggest thing was, at least on Azura, the problem that you had was it was hard to cap out your points. Okay, so in domain invasion, you can go in and you farm beads, right? So for like your Aeonic clears and things like that. So everything was dying so fast. So what they did was they scaled the HP with the number of people that were in it. Okay, so at least for the populated servers, at least made it to where you could effectively farm better for those points. So it's still relevant now for Aeonics. I mean, what do you do to farm most of your beads now?
I haven't gone out my way to farm beads for like months, I'm afraid.
For months?
I've not done an Aeonic clear for like a year and a half. Honestly, I haven't, because I'm pretty much done with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're coming back, know that at least on the populated servers, it should be a little bit easier to participate in those things. Next up for January was the Beast merit buff, which this actually kind of went by me. I forgot all about it. They changed up the merits to shorten the recast timer for sick by 2 seconds and ready by 1. And then the adjustment was shorten recast time for sick and ready by 2 seconds. So Did you pick up on that one in January? Were you on Beast yet? When
No, I wasn't on Beastmaster quite then, but even then I knew what that meant because a beast's lifeblood is its ready reuse timer. If you need to get your charges down as much as you can so your pet can freely use moves. To those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Beastmaster operates on a system kind of like with like a Corsair and Quick Draw. Or a scholar using stratagems. That's the closest thing I can say to it. Each of your pet's moves requires a different number of what's called ready charges, and once they're used, the charges start ticking back down until they eventually become then when you have enough charges, that move becomes usable again. The exception to this rule is if a Corsair does random deal and resets your timer, wildcard and resets your timer, or you use Unleash, at which point you can just freely fire away. But reducing the timer on those charges was really beneficial. I mean, some Beastmasters would still complain, and in some cases rightly so, like, oh, we need to have like an eye level version of the Charmer's Merlin, which reduces that even further. And we probably do, to be honest, but that was definitely a step in the right direction.
Part of that update was to try and give Beastmaster the same set it already has, without having to rely on the Charmer's Merlin to give it that extra 5.
Yeah, and you lose TP. So I mean, I think the goal of not having to change weapons is kind of some of those the buff that came here too. So overall, a good change. There was also a lot of stuff they added for inputting which this is what we're going to go over in the next month that they rolled back. But in January, they initially changed the delay between the command and the activation of certain abilities. And I guess it turned out to be either too powerful or it was instantly doing. I wasn't playing Beast at the time, but I know they did roll that back.
Yeah, the reason they rolled that back is it's a problem that Puppet Master still has, but I'll get to that in a moment. Basically, they reduced the time frame from activating the move to the move going off to like pretty much nothing. But the problem there is
Bob, flip your mic up.
But the problem there was it didn't give the Beastmaster time to swap into a set to increase the effect, accuracy, or damage of that move. So it was like firing instantly. There was like no time.
Okay.
Yeah, Puppet Master still has this problem, and there was such a big outcry, and rightly so, from the Beastmaster community that they had to revert it. Incidentally, it's not the first time they've had to revert a job update. They did it before with White Mage.
Ooh, that's a spicy one.
That was so the White Mage one, just to go back, that was 2019, where originally the people who had Yagrush are probably the most mad, right? Didn't they buff something that gave you the ability to remove?
They changed how Asuna works under Afflatus Misery. Right. And they changed how Sacrifice worked under Afflatus Solace. I think that's what really pissed off those career White Mages with the Yagrush. Career White Mages. What am I saying? Most of them botted. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah, just have to be real there. Yeah, they changed it back because there was such a big uproar. I was personally really, really mad that they actually undid it, because the change to Afflatus Misery was brilliant. It made Asuna just erase everything that the target player had,
including amnesia.
Yeah,
right?
It became the only way of removing amnesia.
Yeah.
So for
there's a ring that does it, but I don't think anyone carries that thing.
Yeah, but for one glorious month, a White Mage could actually remove amnesia. I'm miffed that what they should have done. They should have undid what they did to Solace and Sacrifice spell, but just keep Asuna and Misery as it was. But no, wasn't to be.
Yeah. No, that was like right when I came back, so I caught the tail end of all the drama there, but yeah. So that was honestly most of January. So Beast got a little bit of love, and for populated servers, DI got a little bit more doable. Now, February was actually a pretty decent month. So the first thing we got was a new avatar. So we got Siren.
Yeah.
And I was actually reading a little bit more, going through the forums. There's actually some interesting mechanics with Siren that may never be used, but at least kind of gets the gears thinking on some things on the element that some of their abilities are based, which seems a little unironic. Do you know where I'm hitting at there?
Oh, is this about the confusion about if cleric was light or wind damage?
Well, close. So some of the debuff moves are wind based. So like the slow ability is still wind based. So they were able to like cast. People had showed screenshots being able to land, earth resistant normally for like slow, being able to land those siren debuffs on. So
yeah, the thing that I thought, I mean, from what I've seen from the summoner players, I know, Siren was very much welcome. Siren's got quite a few unique mechanics. She's the only one with the Silencer ability. That's lunatic. That's some lunatic voice, which is very useful and dynamic from what I've heard. She's got Bitter Elegy, which is a slow move you just mentioned, which matches. I think it matches Carnage Elegy. Pretty sure it does.
I think, yep.
Yeah. Her Astral Flow Claret Call is also has an effect. I don't think it tells you. It just says does like an AoE wind attack. It buffs all of her stats as well. So if you open with Astral Flow in a tough fight, and you can actually keep Siren out, which is pretty easy because you've got Hysteric Assault, which is, I think, one of the only ways in any avatar can actually cure itself apart from Leviathan. And the Leviathan, Carbuncle, and Garuda can all heal themselves, but Siren's is like a guarantee.
Yeah, that's like,
and it does and it does damage.
Yes.
So yeah, from what I gather, she was quite welcome. And Subtle Blow 2, which is her favor, is kind of underused a bit. It's quite useful, but mostly your favor is going to be Ifrit if you with DDs for that pretty beefy double attack bonus, unless you want to cap out Subtle Blow.
Yeah, it's interesting though.
Yeah.
And then there's a Dispel ability on there too. So, and then it looks like February is when the domain invasion, they added an NM to it. Now there's a couple other things, bonuses that were added that weren't happening in February. So that month they just added the NM, and I think it was kind of a test phase to see how we would do with it. And then also
not well.
Yeah.
Mirror you. Oh man,
got flattened that first month.
Especially on populated servers, Mirror would spawn in the actual trillions of health.
Yep. Because if you look at the last month, they scale it with the participants. So yeah, it was literally you just stand there. And then you also have the ability to just flail, and oh my gosh. You got people who would troll the fight. So, and then they rolled back Beastmaster buff so that they moved it to a 1 second activation time. So the activation buff, they rolled back from January. Now, one of the biggest buffs, and admittedly, I will be the least knowledgeable person to speak on, was the Paladin buffs for the month. So there was a Rampart buff, and then Shield Bash and Divine Emblem recast reductions. Were those relevant at that month?
Yeah, I mentioned all these.
Rampart buff, and then Shield Bash and Divine Emblem, the recast reductions by a lot.
Yes, both of those are pretty solid buffs.
Yeah, I went over this briefly in the Paladin Guide Part 1 I put out, but yeah, Rampart previously was a bit of a joke ability. All it did was just increase physical defense a bit and reduce magic damage a little bit. It was nothing remarkable at all. They changed it to give special damage taken reduction, which breaks the cap for all damage, physical or magical, no matter the element. So it's a real solid ability. Shame it can't be used on other parties and alliance content, but hey, you just have to take what you can get. So
Yep.
yeah, Shield Bash having its recast timer reduced to 1 minute was flipping great. It's a solid enmity generator, even if it's got a slightly prohibitive reuse timer still. It's good as a dispel. You can use once a minute, pretty much. Pretty sure it's unresistible, the dispel. The stun can miss, but the dispel can't be resisted. I'm pretty sure about that. And Divine Emblem was again just great. It's just more enmity control. This really just marked the start of them addressing Paladin, which they needed to do to try and break the just you never used to see them in endgame. Well, rarely.
Yeah, I mean, I think without ruining it, you'll see that Paladin is kind of a theme here. So, and yeah, and let's see, in that month too, and then you also had the Atonement buff.
Oh yeah,
which that one actually slipped me too. So they adjusted Atonement to just do a fixed amount of enmity. So there's no damage like scaling with enmity, which granted I wasn't even looking at, the weapon skill at the time. So
yeah, Atonement's purpose has never been to do damage. I think when they announced that they were adjusting Atonement, there were some players who were hoping that they were increasing the damage it dealt, but nah. The great thing about Atonement is it lets you stay in your tanking build with enmity and not yo-yo your HP up and down into a weapon skill set. Its enmity it deals, its enmity it generates is a fixed amount, which increases with your TP, and the Burt Gang increases the FTP once you are 15 it. But yeah, getting the rank 15 Burt Gang is pretty strenuous. So I never
getting the trials done for Burt Gang.
From
a couple people doing it.
I can't think of a worse trial. Literally, I can't think of
damage
a worse
is so
trial.
bad.
It's horrible from what I've heard.
That and Nirvana, I guess.
Nirvana, you can actually get Summoner to do some damage with it, but yeah, Atonement's just awful.
Awful.
Yeah, awful. The damage that is.
Oh goodness. All right, let's see here. What do we got? So, I mean, that pretty much wraps it up. I would say the Siren and Paladin definitely the biggest things. And
Siren
then
definitely so far Siren's definitely the big winner of that. Like the Beastmaster adjustments are mentionable, but they haven't really at that point they hadn't really adjusted anything for really anything outside of just adding Siren.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing with Siren was, I mean, it didn't really break it, but like for a lot of the like summoner burn stuff, like the ability to stay healed was big, because essentially your damage is the same amount that you're healing. So it's a lot on that HP drain on the assault. All right. So in March was the long-awaited, and this is where we can talk a little bit about maybe a hint into what we can look forward to. But they introduced Mombrox. You know me, I'm good with saying Mombro. The Trust. So me, I mean, I'll let you all talk to this. I'm terrible about doing the deeds, so I'm still 15 months away from getting mine. So, but did you all pick up that ego?
Away from something that takes 12 months to do, and okay. Absolutely,
it's impressive.
You want to talk a trust that essentially levels the playing field as best as you can expect, well, compared to other trusts. He's got a pretty generous HP pool. All things considered, he doesn't do damage. Yeah, doesn't really do debuffs. He's got the Dark Potion that does 666 fixed damage. And yep.
So what's his big benefit? What is he more of a status cure? Is that what he does, or ailments?
So he's the only trust that does not care about silence for healing. And that is his big thing. He cannot be, if he gets silenced, he doesn't care.
Does he have a limitation? Like, so, I mean, obviously mage is mana. Does he have a limitation on what his casting is, or is it like fixed cooldowns for what he does?
I believe it's fixed cooldowns. I haven't looked too deeply into him. All I know is he significantly outperforms all the other white mage trusts I have, and I have all of them except for Ignis.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It gives an interesting perspective. I thought they were maybe using this as kind of a test for a potential future job on how it played into the mechanics. And that's why, like, I'm not sure. I guess I just need to get it because I don't know if he has other things that he can do. Does he buff at all? Does he provide any?
So he has a protect and shell. He does, but it's a item based protect and shell, so it lasts like 4 or 5 minutes, I think. And then
What's that equivalent to?
Protect and shell. I'd have to pull him up.
It's interesting. And what's more interesting too is like how his like as you can raise your trust levels, how those items scale. I don't know if we even have that information yet, but without knowing every detail, I think it's still an interesting job to think about because it's one that's
the job that we're talking about. Mombro is basically a chemist. Chemist is a game which was chemist as a job. I think was first seen in Final Fantasy V, but I think most know its tactics appearance is its most notable one. And what you mentioned about potentially using that as like experimenting for a job or something. When Void Watch was around, we started getting those pieces of gear which had them sphere effects, like the bodies and whatnot, and that was like something that we hadn't really seen before. And that eventually became an entire job, Geomancer. But
that is interesting. Yeah.
So it's a pipe dream, but it kind of makes you wonder why they never actually released Chemist, or Chemist wasn't part of like Adeline or something, given there's like Inventors Coalition and whatnot. There's like,
well, I think Vaub, when you type, you're gonna have to flick your thing up. It's going louder than it's going louder than Rua. Well, the only thing I can think of is like, do they know like where would it excel? And I guess Vaub said one area like it didn't care about silence. I would think like where they would fit it in, what other jobs can offer versus what it could do is the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, I have some ideas. I'll keep it brief. In addition to being a pretty good healer, you could also make it like be the midway between like a healer and a really strong buff job, like somewhere between either White Mage and Bard. Let's just say, I know that people are going to be like sub Bard on White Mage for endgame, but yeah. Do you remember those temporary items you can get in Eshka and Raise and Gina, the screen items that actually buffed? Maybe a line of like abilities which give that. It's almost like you would give, instead of having like MP or like too big a native MP pool, they would like almost like how Ninja consumes tools. Maybe they would do something like that for Chemist.
I was thinking too, maybe like how Blue Mage gets where they can set certain spells. Like you could unlock certain items to use, but you would only have, going into a fight, you could only set so many to be able to use. So kind of utilizing, I guess, existing mechanics but a new way to implement them.
Yeah.
All right. Well, sit on that, Chemist. Maybe it'll happen. Maybe it won't. We also got the new content, which would be pretty much the main new content that we would get for the year, and then we'll go over the other implementations of it. Is Odyssey. So look, I think it's got potential. We got 3 months to talk about. There's what I'm looking for.
Implementations?
No, implications. I can't even say it. I told you I've had 700 milligrams of freaking caffeine. I can't even think here. I'm looking sideways.
It'll calm you down.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me pull up the announcement and how it was explained. So if someone's listening later, and then we can kind of talk about it a little bit. But I actually haven't done a whole lot of it. But
it's okay. You're not.
Let's look
much.
at it. Okay, so So Odyssey is exploratory battle content in which players progress through an area of Walk of Echoes known as Shoal. Materials you acquire in Shoal A, which is what was launched in March, can be used to augment equipment described later. So initially, the biggest thing with this content is it's a unlock for augmenting the Unity equipment.
Yeah.
So they added a R15 path to some of the Unity equipment, which at the time was, it looks to be around 30 pieces or so. And I mean, it was good upgrades. I mean, more down the line, down the line, but the results were relevant. The content itself, I don't know what you all think.
Well, let's just not beat around the bush. Odyssey to me is a definition of a missed opportunity.
Where would you have wanted to? I guess, like, what was your expectations, and where did it go in a different direction?
They could have made it like something. I know I've brought it up a whole bunch in previous episodes. They could have made it something like Limbus, not where you actually have to engage with the content and beat it, not just sneak and invisible your way through everything or come as a thief and pick locks. There's something that was like,
Right.
it's group-based exploratory content. yeah, sure.
Yeah, the definition, group-based exploratory content. The best way to do it, Thief Sub Dancer or Thief Sub Ninja or Thief Sub anything that gives you sneak and invis, have a couple re-raise items, pop a chest, oh no, that one's a mimic, let one of your trusts get its ass beat as you go find something else to kill you so you can get back up off a re-raise and go around the other way.
So so I'm trying to think. Limbus was the
C.
That was the more inside base zone.
Yeah.
And that was the one where you essentially cleared floors, farmed coins, and it was you drop upgrade materials the same.
Yeah.
So would you like to have seen like non-trust based zone? So like you can't call trust. Is that kind of the?
No. You could. Sorry, Vaub, just a moment. It's not the people using trust to clear it that bugs me. What bugs me is they made an option for you to just essentially. What is like easier than cheesing something? Is there even a term for that? It's like you could literally.
Yeah, I don't know.
You could literally go through it like completely solo because they're like the end goal of Odyssey is to get Unity gear augmented. You can just run to the exit, get like, and then buy like a bunch of wings or mats or whatever, and R15 what you need. Boom. You've never. I've never engaged a single monster in Odyssey. I've just run through all three of them.
Yeah, it's interesting because like
you're not missing much by not fighting them. The monsters aren't scaled up very well. The entire content itself is just a complete fucking flop.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if they have like. I think a lot of it will lead towards the end of the year where they ultimately want it to go, and the path to get there. I don't know if it was kind of what necessarily the community thought it was, but I definitely think it was. Because like you said, like right now, like you can farm the money to just buy the items faster than you can go around and picking locks to undo it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Either way, Odyssey was released that month. The main thing that came with it, though, was the ability to augment existing Unity items that were already out. So a 119 gear that maybe had become irrelevant gained some use cases for certain things and even more content down the road.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a good thing. It brought life back to some pieces of gear which people kind of had put into storage or sent onto mules on the same account. The standouts
or
for me,
thrown on the ground.
Or that.
Yeah.
The Shoal A, the standouts from Shoal A for me were the gelatinous ring and the moving column.
Mm-hmm.
I used both of those on Paladin, and they're brilliant.
Yep.
So, yeah, those were two standouts.
I think too, it's a way for them to not necessarily mess with jobs and let the gear decide different ways that maybe you could do content.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it gives you flexibility or, I don't know, enhancements in certain areas without tweaking the actual game itself. If that makes sense.
but
I don't know.
that only takes you so far.
I agree. I agree.
I mean, you can add 60 strength to a job all you want. If it's a shitty job, at the end of the day, it's going to be a shitty job with 60 extra strength. Like, that's just how it works.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the more support and less the DD and damage jobs were impacted. But all right, well,
I mean, there was a couple of really, really good gems in that, like the MEC from Garbage Gel as well. Although not as well sought after as the Gelatinous Ring, there's probably your best pre-Rima hand-to-hand options from Monk. You've got, and
yeah, there's like a couple TP pieces, but in general, theme is this kicked off the ability to start the augmentation process for Unity gear. To wrap up that update was the addition of bonuses for actually clearing the Miru, the domain invasion boss, which I thought this was a pretty big deal from a time standpoint of if your server can kill the NM so many times in a row, it leads up to you getting maximum domain invasion points for the day. So versus you having to jump around and do your 4 or 5 kills, you could go in you could go into 1 DI and clear.
Yeah, that was merciful because some of the DI, some of the things you could buy with domain invasion points were quite nice.
Yeah, and where is DI still around? Did you use him? You haven't done DI much, but this guy made an account to where you could send him a tell and he'll tell you what zone is coming up or where it's at.
Yeah, it's the reason that guy had to make that account is because normally you'd be told for Unity chat, like, oh, where is the DI?
But you can't get into it.
But you can't get into it because everyone piles into the number 1 to get all the flipping bonuses.
Yep.
It's just silly.
Another really big thing that month, and this goes back to another one of the comments that I think where they did follow up on one of their promises from that 2019 interview, was them saying that they're adding, virtual servers to be able to better support the instance zones. So in March, we got multiple instances for the Walk of Echoes high tier battlefield. So I specifically remember it being much easier to get into Lilith and Odin starting that month. Queues went down from 20 or 30 during our time down to, you would get in within 5 or 6 minutes. So
yeah, I've got distinct memories of having to wait like 45 minutes to get into a Lilith run. It was like, dude, this is just fucking stupid. But at least it shows that they will eventually act on something which is clearly not working as it should. But yeah, moving at the speed of what's a good one? An asthmatic ant
smell.
And asthmatic ant with some heavy shopping. I think
I'm gonna have to Google that one.
It's a reference. Some people watching this might get the reference.
Okay, I'll be interested to see.
I'll want full of these. Absolutely.
Okay, so here's where we get. Obviously, this is like prime COVID time. So as we move into April and May,
April had the best update.
Yeah, so April, April and May, there were no major updates. However, they did grace the community with substantial campaigns for those months.
Oh, they did.
So I think they ended up like doubling, since they weren't going to have any more additions to like Odyssey, because I think they pushed that back a couple months. They gave good campaigns. So It was a great time because in April and May they do one of their return to Vanadil campaigns too, I believe,
Yep.
that month. So it was a great way for people to come back and pretty much whatever content you wanted to do, there was probably a campaign for it that month. So
Yeah.
Except for the Statue Crusher Plus campaign. Rest in peace.
Yeah. I like that. I like that gesture from Square Enix because, yeah, it was actually a trend for gaming companies in general to just try and help people get through some pretty tough times back then. By actually you had really companies were giving games away through the PSN and whatnot. So Square Enix just started to throw some campaigns.
Sony
I
was
think
giving stuff away. Microsoft, Steam had a massive sale. Everything was.
Yeah. I think too I think it also highlighted, and this is for like a lot of companies in general, but in particular this game, it showed them how far behind they were on their infrastructure to support from a remote location. And I won't go I think I'll leave most of this conversation into like as we recap the recap the year. But I think that was another thing was like it was probably a wake up call for the infrastructure that they have to be able to support the game in a capacity that's not right in front of their local server where all their tools are.
Yeah.
So, okay. So for April and May, we're gonna give them the campaigns. In June was a very substantial month for the game, and while it's not in necessarily in contents or job changes or anything like that, it has completely changed the market inside of the game, especially if you've played since the introduction of Sparks.
Here we go.
Yes.
Here we go. Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
So to give first I'll say what the nerf was and then explain how it was used before, and then we can have whatever dialogue that you all want. But so in June, they capped the sparks that you can exchange to 100,000 per week. Okay, so prior to that, there was no cap, and there's a particular method that people would use. I mean, this was your way to essentially make money for a lot of people because there's times in the game where you can go out and kill experience yielding mobs and cap your sparks extremely fast. And then essentially every 100,000 sparks is about 1 million gil. Okay, so what would happen, or the impact of that is that was injecting massive amounts of gil into the economy because you have bots that could essentially run a path and just farm sparks constantly. And once that nerf happened, it kind of kickstarted something that's really coming to fruition now with the deflation that you're seeing. But yeah, thoughts?
So it was a phenomenal and tragic thing simultaneously. Because Sparks farming, one, it's easy. Go to Esha, Zeta, Ruran, or Raisenjima, and you could cap Sparks 20, 30 minutes up there, even faster if you were on a job that could AoE kill a couple of things at a time. Blue Mage, I could go up on Blue Mage and in a 3-hour window come back with 16-ish million gil or more, depending on how well I was doing that day. How many beers I'd had.
Yeah, sorry, Bob.
Oh, and since the change has happened, like that's just one, it's not a good farming option. So, and the other thing too is Unity accolades. You could do the same method with because you would get those from doing the same pieces as well, and so you'd get that on top of it, and you'd be able to just absolutely amass gil because Unity accolades would be once again capped accolades, million gil roughly, or you could get 6 SP Gobby dial keys, which you just take the gil because the Gobby dial's a lie.
Yeah. What are you gonna say, Rua?
I know more than a handful of people who were directly affected by the Sparks nerf. I think it was inevitable. It was coming because inflation was getting stupidly out of control.
Mm-hmm.
If history teaches us any constant, it's amazing how many real-world economic principles you can apply to a virtual environment. I mean, I think there was like
all of them.
Yeah, but yeah, hyperinflation
is an economy.
Yeah, well, people.
Well, yeah, I mean,
people.
essentially, yeah, I mean, essentially, the Sparks thing was, think of it literally just printing money for your country. I mean, literally, all it is just printing money and throwing it into the economy and thinking that there's going to be no impact on it. So just coming back to the game and being back for at the time just over a year, it blew my mind that it was in the game for so freaking long. Like, I can't imagine how much gil, and I think it's just now disappearing 6 months later. But
yeah,
wow,
it's kind of what I said previously. Like, Square Enix will eventually adjust something that needs adjusting, but it might take them a very long time to get there and do it. Me personally, I never really farm Sparks for gil. My gil has always come from, and I get people asking me this all the time, my gil comes primarily from Dynamis. My Dynamis Link Shell splits currency, and we like bid for vault drops. So if a piece of vault drops and you don't get it, you at least get something. And ambuscade, that was about it pretty much. I never really farmed Sparks because I knew that wasn't really sustainable. The nerf was eventually coming. I didn't want my whole revenue thing, my whole revenue stream to just break. So I never did.
Yeah, I mean, literally, if you're on our server or Azura, there's anyone who has ever been to Port Winders, Home Point 3, an alliance of 18 Beastmasters that just runs on a bot. And they're all the same gear. They were all the same gear, and they literally were just like, or not Port Gino, but you know what I'm talking about. But they would literally just run, dump their stuff, and then warp back out to the zones and start farming again. So, but anyways, so the implication was, I mean, it's now we're seeing a large deflation in the economy, and Yep. Another thing at the time, this isn't a patch, and pardon me for the exact month, but it's somewhere around this point they started addressing the crafting exploits too.
Oh, that was a hoot.
Which, I mean, it was massive. So the problem is, and it's like, it's one of those things, but like, you have people with unlimited SU5 weapons, unlimited +2 necks, that as soon as you would you can go to the cell and look at the SU5s and it's nothing but one person. So they addressed a couple of those too. I didn't see as much of an impact in terms of pricing as I thought I was going to with that, but that was also addressed around this time with the Sparks nerf. So
yeah,
let's see. In June too, there was, just to give the trust some love, there was a buff for the tank, a few of the tank trusts that month.
Oh yeah.
So they changed the mechanics of Elven Archangel, August, and I can't even say that name.
Rujadin.
Rughad.
Rujadin. Yeah, I've had plenty of practice saying his name.
Yeah. So it's funny that like before, now it says essentially the buff for Archangel and Ruha Jean was using Flash instead of Holy when Divine Emblem is active. So it would be more tanky, I guess, versus trying to do damage.
And they also gave Ruha Jean a lot more damage taken reduction innately, because he's a paladin who uses a greatsword, so he's a lot tankier than he once was.
Yep, and then it looks like August got a damage buff. So
it did fix the Puppet Master tanking options. Now they can just use Archangel Elven and have an actual tank.
Yeah.
Oh God, now you're gonna just get the whole community going on us again. Here we go.
My bad. You'll get over it.
My wife did text. She's like, all right, I'll bring you something. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I need something to bring this caffeine down. So yeah, the Sparks. So June, rest in peace, Sparks. So July added Shoal B. So I mean, I think we've said our piece on Shoal, but what it did, it added more augmentable items into the from the Unity gear. So let's see. There's also which this was substantial, but I think I just looked over it because I hadn't done the content, but it's a decent little nerf to some of the content to make it more accessible. But they brought down the difficulty in Alluvian Skirmish. And ironically, there's still some gear that's still used for like macro in pieces for various jobs. So
Yeah, like the Taeon.
Yeah, for a lot of Taeon gear. Let's see. Yeah, so they just decreased the HP in a lot of the mobs, and just made it easier to farm up the items that it takes to pop. So they made them drop in reeves and things like that around the zone. So a lot easier to access the content if you're coming back.
It's worth saying the Taeon gear, before we move on, that on that note, the Taeon gear is important because I'm pretty sure it's easiest way Rune Fencer can get a phalanx receive build sorted out.
Yes,
yes,
that is.
The other option is Dark Matter.
Dark Matter, which good luck with that.
The other thing worth mentioning is Taeon and Telchine. For the jobs that can use them, almost all of the pieces have at least one purpose amongst the jobs that can use them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's they're pretty.
Doesn't Scholar use all of Telchine?
No, not
Scholar,
all.
White
No.
Mage use.
I thought the
4 or 5,
enhancing duration.
No,
I think it's just 4 or 5 for both of for that.
No, for regen on Scholar, you're only using 3 of those pieces.
Okay. Well, still, it's it's relevant content, so it's interesting that they made it easier to access. So, let's see. Okay, well, we also got a Paladin buff. So this introduced the new job trait. So this was Shield Barrier. So this grants a bonus to protect spells cast on self for at the time, while a shield is equipped. And the second buff was, in addition to previous effects, Majesty allows protect spells to affect party members. So Majesty allowed since AoE protect. And then also, in addition to previous effects, Reprisal increases shield skill. So this was a pretty big month for Paladin, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, you missed one, by the way. There was one other thing in that update. They increased the defense of the eye level shields by quite a bit.
Okay, yes, I do have that on here. It was just the you're right. So there is a whole list of shields that got buffed, got their defense buffed. But yeah, so it was a pretty big update for Paladin, I'd say, right?
Yeah, it was Paladin's part 2, this update, and this for me was the update which really, in my eyes, pretty much fixed the job to me. I need to hang on.
I still think Paladin could use a little bit more love, but
yeah, there's one or two things. Actually, there's only one thing I'd say Paladin really could use, and that's just, well, you can't give Paladin foil. I mean, Paladin does have ways of getting hate on itself. You're not necessarily tied to a Blue Mage subjob to do it. A Blue Mage subjob is optimal to get it done. Don't get me wrong. That is completely true. But you've still got Banishka to Reprisal, which isn't as much hate, but it's still some. You can use Rampart, you can use Sentinel, you've got Palisade, you could just Majesty Cure bomb people. There you go, that's more enmity for you, but if you're engaging a lot of targets, it's not really viable. I get your point. Maybe they'll give it something in future, but to me, it's like, if not 100% finished, it's at least 95% the way there, because that adjustment to Reprisal was pretty major. Especially using like Priwen and Srivatsta now with their heightened base defense and their shield skill, get so much out of Reprisal.
Yep, I mean,
Mean,
essentially,
Srivasta is no longer a meme that people make when they're done with Aeonics.
Yeah, the Srivasta is solid. I'm quite fond of it.
is there even use for the others outside of like with Aegis for magic damage? I mean, if you're looking for,
I've not used Aegis in months. The last time I used Aegis was when we had the Dullahan and Ixion ambuscade, and the Ixion had the move which would legit one shot you if it landed and you didn't have Aegis. That's the only time I've used it.
I guess I missed and one of the job updates writing the ability down, but Majesty is also out at this point. Yeah. And I think it's important for if there's people listening coming back to a recap of Majesty and what it is. I don't know how I missed that one, but Majesty, if you want to just explain that one real quick.
Yeah, Majesty, wasn't that very late? Was 2019?
Yeah, maybe that was late 2019 because I thought I went through pretty thorough on these updates.
I think it was December 2019. Don't quote me on that.
I think it was as well.
Yeah, okay. Majesty, real quick, Majesty is an ability Paladin gets that can be kept up full time. It causes all of a Paladin's cure spells, cures 1 through 4, to become AoE versions centered on the target. It also increases cure potency by 25%, a value which breaks the cap, so a Paladin can hit 75% cure potency without even really trying, which is pretty mad. And it also reduces cure recast timers by 25%. So Paladin suddenly became able to mass cure bomb entire parties in its alliance.
Yep, it's alliance-wide, which is really wild.
Really good.
Yeah. So in that month, the Protect got buffed. So now Paladin has the strongest Protect, correct?
Yeah.
That by a landslide.
Yeah, though that depends if you're not using a shield with a lot of base defense, you might as well be having a white mage do it anyway.
Okay.
I still see Paladins casting it with like the O-Chain or the Aegis, like, oh, it still looks better. It's like, dude, it's not. Look at the base defense of that shield. It's not that high.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we don't have to go into it now because I think maybe it's something I want to talk about in like looking forward. But maybe this also like these buffs to all these shields was somewhat of a test too, just to see kind of how they did at the 119 level.
Yeah.
But let's see, and then
before we get off of the
go ahead.
Talk, I think like the only thing I would really like to see go further with that is I still want to see O-Chain and Aegis brought up to a 119 level.
No, I disagree with you there. Yeah, I don't think
I don't see why.
I
don't see why there wouldn't be a need to.
Well,
let's save it. Let's save it for because one of the topics we have is job, like what we want to see. So let's save it for then. Let's get these. We're almost knocked out for these months. So let's talk about August because August was a lovely month for job changes. So or in particular one, but. So the first thing that it brought was the first entry in the Voracious Resurgence, which I'm not sure if you all have started yet.
Nope.
Admittedly, you can tell definitely they're the goal with when they announced this is going to be released over an extended period of time. So while I think personally that it's going to lead up to something that is worthwhile, it's definitely, you have to be patient with it because they're releasing it in small chunks. And this obviously proved to be so in the first installment, but it did launch in August. So the next thing that it brought were the Beastmaster changes.
Oh, yeah.
And these were some really good ones. They set some good expectations or forecasting and then maybe haven't come to fruition yet. But a couple things happened with Beastmaster. First, we got brand new job traits, substantial ones too. The first one was Tandem Strike, which as long as you are engaged and fighting the same thing as your pet, depending on your level, it's anywhere from a 30 to 90 buff in accuracy, which is a lot at That's 99. So, yep. The second thing was Tandem Blow, which I don't know if you've played with anything yet, so I'll let you talk on this, but essentially a 40, 60, 80 TP reduces the amount of TP gained by enemies when striking them if you and your pet are attacking the same target.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to talk about that one, because I knew you did some testing with it.
Yeah, okay. Tandem Strike addresses a pretty big problem Beastmaster had, is that Beastmaster's base stats were pretty low compared to a frontline DPS, especially its accuracy. But that fixed it wholeheartedly. The caveat is that you have to be engaged on the same target as your pet, but that's not too big a problem. It made Beastmaster DPS a lot easier to work around, so you can actually have a TP set which has more multi-attack, store TP and whatnot, and not have your accuracy suffer horribly. Tandem Blow was the really interesting one. Oh, sorry. The other good thing about Tandem Strike was that it also affected your pet. So
Correct.
It helped the pet's TP gain rate quite a bit. And since the potency of duration of some effects varies with TP, especially if they're buffing effects like Frenzied Rage or something. Yeah, having a pet get up to such high TP relatively quick was really, really useful. Tandem Blow, initially everyone was a little bit let down by this one, because it's like, oh, was it just like Subtle Blow 1? But then I forgot who it was in the forums did some really good testing and proved it was actually Subtle Blow 2, so it breaks the cap. Which is...
Yeah, I can't remember their name. I'll try to get that when I upload it to give them credit, because it was some good information.
Was it Silk? He's a guy. I think
I am not.
I think
sure.
I think it might have been the guy who worked with me on that Tank Jobs video. I think it might have been him. Yeah.
What's Joe Rogan's assistant's name? That's what I need. I need him right now.
No.
Can you look this up for us?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that.
Hey Jamie, bring that up.
Hey Jamie, can you bring that up?
Yeah.
Working on it, boss.
Yeah. But yeah, it was. So a Beastmaster can now hit 70% Subtle Blow 2 pretty easily. It requires a few tweaks in your engage set, but you still don't lose a lot. And the addition of Tandem Strike's accuracy made it so it's actually feasible to do this. You're only 5% Subtle Blow shy of what a fully capped out monk gets, which is pretty impressive, especially since Beastmaster's got some ways of actually reducing TP, like the leech's TP Drankus. The Subtle Blow also affects the pet, which alleviates TP feed, which is again something Puppet Master doesn't have. Where Beastmaster shits on Puppet Master again. So,
you guys are just trying to get they're gonna.
Yeah, I'm not trying to, but it's just fact. It's just facts, fella.
I mean,
one of these days they're gonna get this like massive buff, and they're just gonna be able to like AOE tank. They're gonna get like his AOE tank ability.
I really do.
I want Puppet Master to get a buff. I'm not hating on Puppet Master because I think Puppet Masters suck. I'm hating on Puppet Masters because they do actively suck. Like that's the problem. Like they don't.
They don't suck. Let's not use such a strong word, but yeah.
Okay, we'll give them that. They have one purpose in life, and that is to help somebody get through end game content until they level a real job.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see.
They are only a good tank for Odin because you only send your pets in on that fight.
No, come on.
They're useful. They're useful for circle pulling on wave 3 Dynamis. I've seen that done a few times, and it's quite useful.
Oh, where you send the doll in to fight the circle, and you run the ever-loving fuck away to the other side of the zone while hope your team can kill it fast enough?
You have the automaton engage the SU5 NM, and you drag them away from the circle. And the automaton can take all the damage, as long as it's not like some really heavy hitters. But going back to Tandem Blow, some of the Beastmaster's pets which they use, especially the pig, the Faz, Vicky, already has Subtle Blow built into it. So it works quite well with that. I mean, you get like the pig, which is capped Subtle Blow, and the beast, which is capped Subtle Blow. So Beast and Monk work together really flipping well. I made a post on the forum about it about a week ago because the topic came up like, oh, this is just my personal experience. But the last thing I'll say on Puppet Master, actually, fuck it, let's save it for when we go over what we would like to see happen.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Well, I think one thing that you're talking about, like, send them into a crowd of things, but so there was new pets that got introduced to. So we got a crab, a coral, a beetle, a slime, and a hippogriff. What's your favorite there? Any of those picks?
The hippogriff. Daring Roland. Roland's got this really unique gimmick among pets. He's got a move called Jettatora, which you probably know from subbing blue on a tank job. But his version lands, and it lasts a very long time. And against some surprising stuff, it will still land. It could last up to about 15 to 20 seconds, fully unresisted. And it's I don't think I've ever seen Jettatora get resisted unless the target wasn't looking at the hippogriff. And that
the only thing that it resists in through the hardest content, so in Dynamis, are Wave 2 boss and the NMs in Wave 3.
Yeah, everything else
it lands.
Which is which is great when you're fighting ninjas, especially especially when you fight like ninja commanders, and you just freeze it in place. There you go, just wail on it, kill it. It can't move.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's any data on this, but I think they were fairly forgiving in the cone too. I think they may have widened it just a little bit than normal. So yeah, if you're doing Beastmaster, don't forget about your Jettatura ability in Dynamis. It's very fun to play with because it lands. So if you're new to Dynamis in general and you go up against ninja mobs, pop a Jettatura, get everyone on it, kill the ninja, and you'll be golden.
Profit.
That cone's pretty generous, that's for damn sure. And you've also got the ability to have, because the ninjas only use Meijin at 25% or below, if I remember correctly. And so you can, even on the NMs, like, that terror is extremely potent. So you can hit it and easily go through 25% of the monster's health before it decides to blast back or anything.
Yeah. But yeah, Beastmaster is just one patch away, and they said that they are leaving, that they have left the door open for it. But again, we'll get to that later on.
Yep, in the August patch.
Beastmaster needs and
well, in the August patch, they said this, like, it was the first, or I can't remember the exact words, but to the extent of there's more coming. So
yeah.
Okay, so moving into September was new installments. You got more in the Vivacious Resurgence quest line, and then the next set of augmented items for Shoal, which was Shoal Path C. And admittedly, I haven't done it, so there very well could be like new NMs in those paths. But you know, if you're listening, I'll leave it to you to. I'm sure there's plenty of info on the forums where people are doing it, but the most important thing in my mind is just it's finishing out the augmented items leading up to what the next Odyssey update will be, which is probably where they intended all the mechanics to get to, which was what we'll talk about here in a minute.
Yeah.
That's about it. In October was another campaign month. And then the introduction of a assist channel that's coming, which I've got a couple of thoughts on, which I'll talk about, which leads right into November. So, because they didn't actually implement it in October, they brought up the UI, so I guess it was there, but not actually usable. But in November, they brought the assist channel out. So I'll be honest with you. I am actually surprised in the assist channel. I don't know how much you pay attention to it, and I won't say it's like super active, but I will say for the server that we're on, it's actually been nice to see the amount of participation in the assist channel.
Yeah, I was initially very, very concerned when they announced the assist channel, because I'm thinking, oh shit, this is just going to get flooded with like RMTs and whatnot. But they went out of their way to make it pretty difficult. Well, not necessarily difficult, but would not be worth the effort for an RMT or someone who's just like advertising guild selling or whatnot. You've got to jump through quite a few hoops. and it does.
Well, yeah, specifically, yeah, it was the mentor system that they implemented. So, I'm not even eligible for it because I haven't done enough of the Records of Eminence quest line. So you have to go through quite a bit to be able to get access on there.
Yeah.
And then there's like different. They added a ranking system, which I thought was also pretty cool because it actually got people who have maybe kind of maxed out on some things a different type of challenge where maybe they hadn't gone through and done as many of the Records of Eminence as they thought. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm eligible. I just haven't joined it because people contact me anyway. Whether I'm in there or
so
not.
people are gonna message you anyway.
Yeah. So there's like no point. Yeah.
I actually put LOL next to this other point because what also came in November was a increase from 100 to 300 for the amount of people you could blacklist in the game.
Yeah, they needed that because I was pretty hard. Well,
so if you're coming back and you can't stand those shouts, just know they triple the amount of people. So what's funny is 300 is the average population size for some servers. So you could theoretically just blacklist everyone, but
yeah, I personally never had to blacklist a whole lot of them because I used that lure, that fuck off lure.
Yeah, which we did make available in one of the videos. So you have to go back and check the description.
That basically it acts as another chat filter. It's literally a quality of life thing. You're not getting any major advantage apart from retaining your sanity and your patience. It's basically it filters out yells and shouts depending on set criteria, like words, like buzzwords that you can specify. So I've carefully selected ones to just include whatever guild sellers or people selling job points will typically say, and I just never see it come up. Which is
maybe
something
we'll comment it again if you're coming back watching and you want to block out all the trolls. So.
Yeah, or you just basically PM me on the auction house forum or something, and I'll send you a link to my GitHub where it is. I mean, it's like it is a third party tool, but it's not like giving like a massive unfair advantage because all it is filtering out and doing something which they should be doing anyway.
Yeah, I agree there 100%. So interesting month in November, not a lot of content outside the new quest. I will say that the addition of the November Resurgence quest actually started to turn the light on a little bit about what could be. So I don't want to talk too much about story because I don't want to ruin it for anyone. But I will say, if you haven't done any of them yet, it's worth doing now because by the time you get done with the November one, that interest is definitely going to be piqued about what's going on in the story. So
yeah, I'll get there eventually.
December. So while the official notes aren't out yet, we got what is coming. So no job updates are happening in December. The main things coming are an additional Resurgence storyline. The alter ego design is finally done. So I don't know how many months ago that was, but I'm not sure what ego it is that's coming, but that is also launching this month. That will be available, I think, just for logging in. You'll get that.
It's a Taru Ninja sub Black Mage. So we'll have to see how that goes, but I'm not really optimistic about it. Hey ho, it's each their own.
Ninja Black Mage.
Yeah.
Well, let's just remember the last time they touched Ninja for a buff, they nerfed the amount of magic damage they could do. So
yeah, that's kind of like a bit of a nice one.
Well, we'll keep that in the back of your mind. So
the trust
we've also and then this month is the big campaign. So you've got your big EXP campaign with a variety of other things. And then they're bringing back the Return to Vanadil, which they normally do in November for the anniversary. They're bringing back the week of Christmas through the week after New Year's, I believe, is what they announced today. So if you have an expired account, you want to come back, check the game out as it is in 2020, then you'll be able to for a couple weeks. And then they also announced that they're going to do the 69% off, I think, the game. It's me $10 for the whole game
Nice.
during that. So yeah, you can also pick it up. It's not the Black Friday deal, which was like 80% off, so it's like $6, but still $10 for every piece of content in 18 years is pretty good. Okay, so 2020. For me, and we can talk about this for a minute, I think I could think about it as two ways. The first, obviously, if you've been around for a long time, I think you could probably look at it as, hey, not much, not a lot happened this year. There was a few packed months. And I think that will be disappointing for the existing player base to kind of look back at it and think that. And I think it's some very valid points. The other way that I look at it is this goes back to a comment I made earlier of I'm trying to look at and think of, with the COVID situation that hit and the position that the team was put in to create some of that content. Were they even prepared to even function at that point? Because I'll go back to another comment from the interview to the way that they look at their methodology for how they implement content. And it's definitely not quick. And I think there's a lot of things that they try to do behind the scenes. And it just hinted at a lack of infrastructure, I think, for them to be able to support the game this year, to be honest. So I don't know what you all think, but that's just kind of one angle that I think you can look at this year.
Yeah, you go first, Vaub.
So a lot of the updates that they did, especially for the content for the jobs, as surprising as this is going to be, especially considering how hypercritical I have been, I want to say a lot of the stuff they've done with everything that's gone on this year has, for the most part, they've been actually hitting the nail on the head. There has been a lot of the updates for like the jobs for Paladin, for Beastmaster. They're getting exactly what they need. Like Majesty is the updates to Majesty is phenomenal. Paladin being able to, even though kind of a joke, but being able to be a more of a healing role to hold enmity and being more of a healing job versus how it was is actually a great way to set Paladin and Rune Fencer apart. The updates to Beastmaster is actually right on line with what we've been saying we wanted to see Beastmaster get back in the earlier parts of this year, where we were saying something that rewards the Beastmaster and the pet for fighting alongside each other. And I honestly think that is something that we're going to see get pushed forward to help with future Puppet Master updates to make Puppet Master a more viable, more feasible job. Because let's just be frank, Summoner of the three main pet jobs, Summoner's the only one that's a mage.
Yeah.
Puppet Masters, if you look at how it says in the storyline, if you look at how it says in the lore, how a lot of the abilities say, it looks like, it sounds like, it smells like, it tastes like you're supposed to be fighting up there. The one thing you don't do, generally speaking, is fight up there. And Beastmaster was played the same way for a very long time. And I would love to see both of them be viable jobs where with pet and controller combined, they're up in the same boat as, if not the same boat, but similar boats to other extremely sought after jobs.
Yeah. My take on 2020, let's just be real about it. I liked what they did to Paladin and Beastmaster, much like you just said, but honestly, the last 3 months have been a major letdown. Just gotta be real about it. I haven't liked how they've I've not liked how they kind of left the carrot dangling, saying, "Oh yeah, there's going to be like further adjustments for like we are leaving the door open to Beastmaster getting another adjustment." There's like Ninja needs. We'll get to this in a moment, but they could have done more with the time they had, and the fact that they constantly pushing back content, like the Odyssey boss area been pushed back twice, 2 or 3 times now or something. Yeah, it's just, it feels like they were getting so much right at the start of the year and midway through the year, which is remarkable in of itself, because we were in the middle of a flipping pandemic and they were having to try and work remotely at one point. So they were doing as good as they could, and I could see that. But we are at the tail end, especially in Japan and in some parts of the world. We've pretty much got this under control. So if they're now having issues, I'd like to know why. What is actually taking so long?
I think it's a transparency thing, and I think
it is.
At least my brain goes through is because it's actually, my job is I directly work with the workflow for companies, and everything points towards a dysfunctional organization with the way that they were forced to have to adapt to the current situation.
Yeah.
So I think it probably has compounded to, with 14, that team that they were supposed to have access to with the divisions being merged, they probably lost access to. Okay, so they probably did not have those engineers to be able to support the content that they originally got the support with back in that interview from 2019. So they probably had to take a lot of this on by themselves, and then couple that with, I'll be honest with you, they probably struggled a lot remotely just based on them. So, but I don't know. So the other thing that it points to, and I think the things that they did well to give them credit for 2020 is the quote that I started out with that hinted on the way that they wanted to start adjusting jobs was to allow people to tackle existing content in new ways. So to start thinking outside the box a little bit is how I interpreted it. So as things become extremely easy to beat, now, one way is like, okay, you don't want it to be a replacement for releasing new content. But in another way, it's, okay, can we evolve the jobs to that have become maybe a meta, if you will? Can we bring other jobs in line that create new ways to tackle content? I don't know what you think about that.
I've been trying. I mean, there's myself and a few others are trying to get people to try different things which might do exactly that, but it's hard. It's really hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say just to wrap up the year, I mean, there were some very impactful updates, but at the same time, I think there was a lot to be desired, and we can't pinpoint exactly what was, because of COVID and what is because of just things that are just unanswerable, but take it as it is. So there were some great job updates, great adjustments, but also a lot
generous to call it.
Yeah, awful.
All right.
Last one of the day for me.
Is that the Stonecutter?
No, that's the Voyager.
Voyager. All right. All right. So let me get back going here. Get my stuff pulling up. Boop, boop, boop. Okay. 2021. So there's, I think, 3 topics that we're going to hit on. Current content changes. Then we'll look into top jobs that we think need adjusted, and then any thoughts that we have maybe on additional content. So first, let's talk about, and maybe they won't do this, but I was thinking today, what are ways that current content might need to be adjusted, or things that they could do with existing content to shake things up a bit. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts.
Well, we know that the final area of Odyssey is coming, and hopefully, well, actually not hopefully, we know it's going to be like battle content, so it's not something you could just skip through.
Right.
So that's something to look forward to. We know that Empyrean Reforge is on the way. but where that's coming, I don't know. My guess is still in a reforged in like Limbus or something. 119 Limbus.
Yeah.
That would be brilliant.
I mean,
I would love.
honestly, unless they're trying to tie it to the end of Voracious Resurgence or the Odyssey final floor.
Might be Odyssey.
Yeah, I don't think so. And I'm thinking too, like more like what we do now, changes we can make. So the biggest thing I was thinking about, and then I was trying to think how you don't break the economy with this, is the being able to do dynamis more often, or changing or adding new ways to. So I'm trying not to break the astral business, but I'm like, I want to be able to work on an SU5 that's not like essentially like you can buy your way to completing it. So you actually have to engage in the content to actually complete the weapon, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I don't know if of a cooldown reduction or an additional mechanics to Dynamis Divergence itself, but it just seems like there's something more that they could add into that content.
The number one change I would make to Dynamis Divergence, this is probably long overdue, is when you're working on RP, the two separate items on one job, it splits between the two, so your gain rate is halved. That should be gone. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So if you're wearing
a neck, and
your JSC neck and weapon,
it's split. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, that shouldn't be a thing. I agree.
Yeah, that's stupid. That needs to go. That's done.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
That's all right. I've already said my piece. I want updated Limbus, and I want them to have the final part of Odyssey to actually be relevant, actually difficult.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing for most is not so much. I don't even know if they've created the path for the first 3 parts of Odyssey already, so they're obviously not going to go back and change current content. But yeah, so really Dynamis is the only thing I can think of, either like allowing you to do it more often or allowing alternate ways to build on some things. But
now that I think about it real quick, they could add Divergence Dreamland zones or Divergence Zarkabad and Bushadine, which would be really, really difficult.
Yeah, I was trying to
hate to see Bodicine just because of how much of a
it's a pain getting around that zone.
Yeah, and
it's so it seems so bigger.
One of the fetters on each of the 4 corners of Bodicine, so you're guaranteed having to figure out which one you're not going after.
Yep. Dude, like Dynamis Basing seems so much bigger in Dynamis than actually just being in Basing. I don't even know. It just seems like everything takes so much longer to go. But so yeah, so like I said, Dynamis was the biggest thing for me. So I mean, I guess we can just kind of leave it at that. But I just feel like there's more that they could do there. Omen in general is, if you can play it for a few months and you kind of can just put it on. I mean, we still die to it. Don't get me wrong, but we take we take too many people. The problem with Omen is you can do it too fast, and that's where you get in trouble. Is when you kill too fast and you stack the mechanics up. So, but anyways,
you mean when you take 3 bravados back to back?
Yeah.
not speaking from experience or nothing like that. We've never done that one.
Yeah. Okay, well, I mean, something to think about, or a challenge to the team. I mean, I just think there's stuff they can continue to work on. But so let's actually do, since it seems at the top of your mind, let's do new content first. So let's talk, I guess, a little bit about if they added the Dreamland zones. What additional thing would they add to the game to make it, besides just being another Dynamis zone?
I would incorporate it into a way you actually reforge relics. You get like relics, like upgrade your relic weapon further. Because
I mean, that would tie in perfectly to the splash picture for Resurgence.
Yeah.
All the dark weapons.
Relic weapons in general. Some of the relic weapons is actually all of them need a bit of an overhaul, and the rank 15 path on some of them need a complete do over. Like I recently capped out ninjas and Kikoku, and it has ninjutsu casting time minus 20% or something on it. It's like, it's pointless. Already cast quick enough.
Because it's already so.
Yeah.
Yeah, you already cast fast enough.
Yeah, I mean, I can count the number of useful relics. Being Galahorn obviously goes without saying, but like actual weapon relics, there's only like 2, maybe 3, which is still really useful for those jobs. Kikoku's one. Kikoku,
the bow, go ahead.
Kikoku, Apocalypse, and situationally Annihilator, Yoichi. I'd say Annihilator.
Yeah, Annihilator is still pretty good.
Yeah, the Excalibur is all right. You can make a block rate 100% without the O-Chain with the Excalibur. But I don't have first-hand experience using that, so I didn't include it.
Yeah, I have one. It's in my storage. Maybe if I ever play a tank one day, I'll pull it out.
How they can actually fix relics is to increase the power of their weapon skills. Like some relic weapon skills, they look like multi-hitters, but they're not multi-hitters. Onslaught, Blade Metsu, I think what other ones are there? There's a few. Oh,
isn't the Dragoon one?
Yeah, Gyroscope looks like a 2-hitter. You've got Mercy Stroke. They should be multi-hitters and transfer FTP. That would be nice.
Yep.
Alternatively, you just have them all scale damage with TP, because you just spam them at 1k because they don't scale damage.
Yeah, I think, that leads to another thing. I think there's various weapon skills that come into it's considered content that we'd like to see some adjustments to as well. I would think most recent Beastmaster comes into mind for us, but
the number one thing I do not want to see them do is let you learn relic weapon skills and use them with any weapon. Some of those when there is one weapon skill which really jumps out at me, if they let Dark Knight use Catastrophe with any scythe, fucking hell. The Redemption, which is the NP scythe, probably just became one of the best DPS weapons in the game. Because if you've got a good HP charge and you've got Soul Eater, and you're swinging and just getting AM3 crits with a flipping Redemption, and you're topping your HP back up constantly. Yeah,
that's interesting. That'd be some, don't do it and break it, but that sounds fun.
Yeah, that's why I think they're never going to let you learn a relic weapon skill purely because of Catastrophe from APOC. They're never going to do it.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I never thought about that, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think another piece of content that I'd like to see is the Fencer buff for like a Beastmaster build. I'd love to do a one-handed axe.
Oh, well, are we moving on to job things, or?
Yeah, I think so. So I think we can just move into where we would like to see. I think it's most impactful. So, the jobs themselves are what people play, and then the content is kind of what you tackle. So, kick it off. What are we looking forward to this year in jobs?
Well, we would need to start with job adjustments anyway, the last of the job adjustments, because Square Enix said in a dev release that they are holding off from releasing content for Empyrean Plus 2 and 3 until they're done with their job adjustments. They have said that.
Okay.
But yeah, to me, some jobs don't need any patches whatsoever, and they're fine. You can leave a majority of jobs as they are, and they're absolutely fine. The ones which stand out for me that need buffing, some quite more substantially than others. Ninja, Puppet Master, Beastmaster needs its final update, but Beast is like almost there. So Nin and Pup need buffs pretty majorly. Black Mage needs a serious overhaul. Maybe.
What's a Black Mage? I haven't seen one in over
I was like, what's a Black Mage? I'm not even kidding you. I forgot what their armor looks like. Just about.
Looks stylish.
Because I haven't seen one in so long.
Yeah. Let's start with Puppet Master, because you could kind of incorporate Puppet Master and Beastmaster into the same update if you really wanted to. Beastmaster's final update to me is give it a job trait that copies the buffs it has active to its pet. The code for this already exists with a Dragoon's Empyrean body. All that does is copy food effect. You take that code, make it apply to songs, rolls, enhancing magic, and just there you go. Your pet is suddenly your pet has suddenly become a viable source of damage.
Yeah, and it's easy enough to like nerf the copied effects too. So I mean, if you didn't want to overpower it and match your buffs, you 25, 50, 75% of the buffs on the player.
I would also give Beastmaster the weapon skill damage bonus trait that Dragoon has, but make it a lesser version of it, so Dragoon's still got the stronger effect. That way, you fix physical axe weapon skill damage, or you buff axe weapon skill damage while also not buffing warrior even more, because they don't need to touch warrior whatsoever.
Yeah, no, warriors.
Actually, I was thinking give Beastmaster Fencer 3 or Fencer 5 by itself, but
there's no point.
That would do it
There's
too.
no point investing in Fencer unless they give Beastmaster a form of JA haste. Or
yeah, I mean that was I would love to see Vicky haste switch over.
Yeah, Vicky. Yeah.
So Vicky's magic haste go to a job ability haste.
That would be really good. What else? Puppet Master could get pretty much the same thing. You take the buffs, both just those same job traits, just give them both to Puppet Master. Copy buffs that the Puppet Master has and apply them to the automaton. I mean, if I wanted to go into depth, I mean, Pup's got a laundry list of problems it needs fixing. But yeah,
I think so. I would like to see, like, I think the two biggest things for Puppet Master for me would be, and I know someone's posted before, like there's an amazing set you can build, so I'm sure it's out there. So when I say this, people are gonna be like, no, I can link it to you, but a dedicated caster, but I think they would need to fix Black Mage in general. But I would like to see just give it to them and be done with it. A way to, if they're going to make it a viable tank, some type of AoE tanking abilities or mechanics in their kit, I think would make the job actually fun to watch and play.
Yeah. Yeah, Pup's just never going to match the damage of a monk. I mean, Pup's the Pup's biggest problem for me when it melees is a monk can maintain 75% subtle blow at all times and not even have any issue with it. Pup is a job that has a similar attack speed and a multi-attack rate, has 0 innate subtle blow. 0.
Mm-hmm.
None.
It's TP feed, so especially if you're engaged with it.
Yep. It feeds TP like a fiend. I know you got pieces like the Moonbow belt, but you still have to go out your way to get 50% to actually get to the base value.
Yeah.
It's
interesting.
The last job I'd say, Ninja. I don't even know how to go about addressing Black Mage, but Ninja just needs a hand with physical katana weapon skills. Raise the FTP modifiers on all of them, and basically do what they did with Monk with hand-to-hand weapon skills. Do the same thing for katana. Because
ninjas just to if you want to clarify what they did for Monk real quick, just in case someone's listening on there for weapon skills, I guess in particular.
Prior to the update, hand-to-hand weapon skills, barely any of them copied FTP. Actually, I don't think any of them copied FTP. And they were just awful. It was the reason Monk was literally the butt of the joke for the community, because his weapon skill damage was just awful. It's basically where
straight in the dumpster.
Yeah, it was awful, and it's basically where Pup is right now. Because I mean, Pup got the same treatment with the weapon skills, but Pup doesn't have any of the abilities and traits that Monk has to actually punch out good damage,
right?
Or at least make it a viable source without too much of a penalty. So yeah, Katana needs the same treatment. Basically, this patch that they did, they made every single hand-to-hand weapon skill, if it was multi-hitter, transfer FTP. every single one of them transfers FTP now. So the Focher Belt and Gorget are really useful. They made it so
Yep.
multi-attack can dip on hits of the weapon skills easier because it transfers now. So that's where you started seeing Victory Smite and Tornado Kick just punching out ridiculous numbers all of a sudden. Again, Pup doesn't have impetus or footwork, so it's
What was the one weapon skill they didn't for Monk, and then they gave a reason, didn't they?
Final Heaven.
The Relic one?
Yeah, Final Heaven.
Yep,
Yeah.
Final Heaven. They didn't adjust that one because they plan to adjust Relic weapons skills in the future, is what they said, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes, that is right. Okay.
If Final Heaven scaled damage with TP, it would actually be pretty tight. That would be pretty nice.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I mean, considering for soloing or for tanking on Monk, Final Saphiri, I probably mispronounced the shit out of that, but actually not a terrible option for that.
Yeah, Saphiri is like a memorable, it's like an honorary mention for a decent relic. I'll go back and say that is all right. But yeah, apart from physics.
So what are Ninja's main weapon skills then that are like multi-hit?
No, Metsu.
Well, for
Metsu.
Katana.
Blade Metsu is its strongest.
Metsu is its strongest. Blade Shun is actually probably its most spammable. And if I remember correctly, Blade 10 is the single highest damage weapon skill Katana has.
Yeah. Blade 10 scales some damage with TP. So you can get some.
Outside of that, like you just say, fuck it, equip Nagling anyways and use Savage Blade and do more damage.
Well, you've got. If you're looking for straight up weapon skill physical spamming, like kind of like with the Mammal Ambuscade, you're using Kikoku and Metsu. With the dedicated dex and weapon skill damage build, Metsu can hit pretty hard, especially if you are super buffed. It will hit pretty hard. Ninja really comes to life when you have a Geo doing frailty and malaise on your target. That's when its hybrids just start trucking shit. That's when they
interesting. Okay,
hard.
Because one is physical and magic. Okay.
Yeah. So Blade, what is it? Cho and Blade.
Chi, Teki, To.
Chi,
Teki, To. A is just straight up magic damage. That's darkness damage. But yeah, those ones hit really, really flipping hard. Oh, you as well, Blade you. That's poison. That's poison and water damage.
So do you want to? So you want to see Ninja tip towards the damage versus the tank on the scale?
You need to.
Is where you'd like to see it go.
Both. I mean, Ninja needs a lot of help. You need to do what I just said for physical weapon skills. You also need to help it out with its tanking role. It's like Ninja's currently that job that they still don't know what the hell they are even doing with it, because like it's always like a DPS because you look like Enon, which is like crit accuracy, weapon skill damage, skill chain bonus, magic burst bonus. And then you see Yonin, which is your tank stance. And you see Path C Fudo Masamune or the Nagi, which has got a shit ton of enmity on it. It's like, okay, what do you...
Don't make a Nagi.
Nagi, I've heard some anecdotal stuff about Nagi being quite good, so I'm not going to pass judgment. The advantage that the Nagi has over the Fudo Masamune is that the 40 enmity is constant. It's not dependent on you actually keeping your shadows up.
Okay.
So the Nagi has got a place. I don't have one. I can't really comment on it. Blade Kamu is still trash, I think. But
So if we narrowed it down to on the damage side, you think it needs the weapon skill. Hang on a second. On the damage side, it needs the weapon skill buff. Like that would be what would push it towards coming up to par on the damage.
Yeah, but I would only do it for its physical weapon skills. Do not touch the hybrids.
Okay. Yeah. You break it.
Yeah, if you break hybrid weapon skills, they can already get pretty broken on wave 3 Dynamis. They can get really flippin' powerful.
Interesting.
But the tanking side, they need a job trait that stops them losing all their shadows in one hit. And they need to actually reverse the enmity loss from a shadow, actually make it an enmity gain. Because that's the whole point. If you've got Yonin active and you're still losing enmity from losing a shadow, that's not the point. You're meant to gain it because Yonin is your attacking stance. So that needs to
Yeah,
change.
I think I agree, and I think a lot of people would. That like it seems like obvious that Ninja needs an ability not to lose its shadow. I think the question would be like, in what form does that come? In a trait, a job ability, a weapon, like what?
Job trait.
A trait.
Make it a job trait which is above level 50, so it can't be abused from a sub job.
Okay.
So it's ninja exclusive. Like if like an attack, let's say like there's like an AOE spell, you will always keep like half of your current shadows. Like it won't consume them all in one shot. If you want to add some more utility to the job, you could give it a miniaturized version of a Blue Mage's Diffusion. Basically makes your next self-target ninjutsu AOE. If like a ninja could give like your entire, if a ninja could give your entire tank party Migawari, yeah, that'd be pretty tight. that would be really.
Well, I mean, come on, they can't even figure out how to tone diffusion down to a sub 10-minute cooldown.
Yeah.
So Blue Mage can actually use it for more than just Mighty Guard and forget they have it for 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's true. That's another problem. Yeah, those were just my picks for jobs that needed adjustments. Nin, Pup, and final bit of Beastmaster.
Yeah, no, I think Ninja is I think Ninja and Black Mage are the general consensus, but nobody really knows what to do with Black Mage without reversing a bunch of other nerfs that they did. So I think Ninja is one that's doable. They just have to. It's just a very large thing that they need to tackle, and I'm hoping that it's going to be one of the Beastmaster things where they say, "Here's a significant change, and then we've got more coming." Just hopefully the pace at which it comes is not months apart. Yeah. So.
I've got a few thoughts here, especially for on the Ninja, because I've got a pretty phenomenally, well, I'm not gonna say phenomenal, a pretty solid Ninja. There's only a handful of things I'm missing for it. Mostly just digging through Oboro, not Oboro, Oseam for perfect augments and R15ing Haishi and Kikoku myself.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Honestly, when the honest fact is in 9 times out of 10 cases, even in super buff situations, you can put, granted, at R0, so before people pull out their pitchforks and torches, Puppet Masters, go ahead and pull those out for me. I appreciate it. But when you can honestly just take Kikoku and on just a pure DD aspect, Kikoku and Hayashi, and just put them in your back pocket and pull out Nagling and do 20% automatically better damage, period, there's an absolute issue.
Yeah, with physical weapon skills.
And like Blade 10 is, I'm not seeing as significant as numbers with Blade Metsu as Blade 10. Like Blade Metsu, I've seen hit up in the 20 to 25k range consistently in some content, but on like Neek, I can get upwards of 40k Blade 10s. And then I put on Savage Nagling, use Savage Blade, and I'm up in the 50 to 60k range. Like,
well, I think it goes to what he said already. Is like, I think the similar monk buff would be a good start for that side.
I do think I do think the Nagling needs a slight nerf.
Oh my gosh, dude! You will burn the community down if you nerf that Nagling.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Considering this game's history with nerfs and this dev team's history with nerfs, I don't even want to see him nerf anything. I don't even want to see him nerf Astral AFAC burns. Like, I want to see more things get brought up to be capable of being that level. You know?
Well, that's what they said in that interview. I mean, that's why I opened with that quote of, that's their goal, is to not, like, once we get to a point to where you can make something meta, like I think that's what you're hinting at. But
because honestly, like, the last time they said they were going to buff Ninja, they nerfed the absolute shit out of it.
Yeah.
You know, granted, in CP party situations, I used to be able to hit cap damage magic bursts with mediocre buffs, not even with like Corsair, Geo, no, with fucking trusts, and you could still get up in the 80k range on, you know, great in sand. Now you try doing that by yourself, and you're probably lucky to break 40k solo, even with Fute up and everything. Like, they absolutely gutted the magic damage side of Ninja, which was a cool and niche thing. It wasn't as damaging as some jobs, but it was still something that you could do and actually provide more use, especially if we're doing low man content. The other thing I really wish, especially for dual wield innate jobs, and this is for all jobs that have dual wield, I wish dual wield had some form of separate subtle blow. And the reason I say this is even with ninja, even with and you see it some with monk, but monk so freely caps subtle blow too, it's almost not even worth talking about. But the TP feed is absolutely insane. And it's part of the problem with like blue mage as well. The best thing you could do on a blue mage currently in the game is mighty guard on cooldown and feed the monster an absolute shitload of TP.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's an even bigger problem for thief, which is a big reason I don't like.
Oh yeah, thief.
Yeah, thief does it worse. At least with blue mage, you can work in like subtle blow into your set, and you can path B a Zalom Dengar, which is the SU5 sword if you really want to. Blue mage can hit cap subtle blow, but it's got such a high attack speed and attacks so much. I mean, blue mage has got delta thrust and cesspool to cripple TP, and you've also got like reaving wind if you really, or lighter penance if you really want to limit something's TP. But you've got to go out your way to do that. And how many people are going to use a Path B Zalom Dengar if you have Tizona R15? Who's going to?
No one. You should. The Zamora Degner is probably the most disappointing of the SC5s, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, the Path C's got some use for getting Burst Affinity's timer down. That's pretty neat. But yeah, I think that I'll just have a quick mention on what they should do to Blue Mage, because Blue Mage is another one that needs a slight adjustment. They've got not much, because Blue Mage, like an R15 to Zoner, is pretty beefy as it is. I'd like to see them like what Vaub said, just take them Diffusion's reuse timer down, and take some of the spells which are tied to Unbridled Learning and Wisdom, the H&M spells. They should not be behind that wall. They should be stuff that you can just set. And they can give job traits that Blue Mage needs, like Subtle Blow or something.
So, and just to clarify, Diffusion makes your next spell AoE, correct?
It makes your next buffing spell AoE, and with the relic boots at 109 or higher, it increases the duration based on the number of merit points spent in the trait itself.
Yeah. So I would lower that to at least a 3-minute reuse timer. Let's be generous and say 3-minute reuse timer, because they brought.
And what's it at
10
now?
minutes.
10 minute.
They brought down Paladin's Divine Emblem. Used to be on a 10-minute timer. I think it was it? Yeah, I think it was 5 or 10-minute time.
I think so. Yes.
So they brought that all the way down. So that they could do the same thing for a diffusion. I'd like to see enhancing magic duration work on buffing blue magic as well.
So
that is interesting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. If they don't bring it down to, I personally, maybe this is greedy of me. Feel free to judge. I don't care. I would like to see diffusion on either a 1-minute cooldown, or I want enhancing magic to adjust blue magic timers.
Yeah.
Because the fact that blue mage has the entire kit of a support DD, akin to something similar to what you currently see Corsairs doing, just without a manner to boost people's store TP essentially. So you've got a 25% attack boost, you've got defense boost, you've got Phalanx 2, if you will. You've got, DT2, I should say, between Barrier Tusk, which is a 15% DT period. So if you're at 50% DT, that's 7.5% of.
So are you thinking if they don't buff Mighty Guard, you essentially, even though it's on a longer cast, you could buff your party longer? Is that kind of the idea? Because your gear would
Yeah.
essentially increase the duration for the party. Is that what you're hinting at?
I would like to be able to use diffusion for more than just fucking Mighty Guard.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we went. Yeah,
Okay.
Even though there is an argument for things like Saline Co. or for haste in certain cases, the bottom line is 99.9% of the time it's better to just slam Mighty Guard and ignore everything else.
Yeah, which is not good design. So they need to do something about that.
Like Carcheron Verve, don't get me started. That's a fucking meme. I'm sorry, there's a lot of people that swear by it. Or you have a Taeon set that has, or is it Taeon? I don't fucking remember. You have an Aquaville set, and you get 9 Aquaville procs anyways instead of the 15, and cast Memento Mori. Completely negates the fact of you even having that spell.
Fair enough.
Yeah, you're beyond my Blue Mage capabilities, but
yeah, Blue Mage, as Jon already mentioned, they need to do something about Blue Mage a little bit. Well, not much, but just a little bit.
All right. Well,
no, I don't want to see Blue Mage's damage go up at all. I just want to see a few quality of life changes.
Yeah, utility
that would actually make it be able to fill that support DD role.
I think we can agree though that and we can wrap up on this of please, like the ninja buff needs to happen. I think the ideas seem pretty clear for what I don't think would break the job. So we'll leave ninja, I think, the winner, and then clearly there's some passion for Blue Mage, and then Black Mage we have no idea what to do about, and finish out Beastmaster, and we'll be good.
Yeah,
so
in order to fix Black Mage would require the combined intellect of Alan Turing, Stephen Hawking, Albert Einstein, and Commander Data. Even then, it would take them a while.
It's like, all right, so which old update do we go back and remove to test out our new Black Mage? So, okay, well, we will, we will wrap up. If you are listening, other than live right now, recently, and you don't play there is the return campaign coming up. So give the game a go here at the end of December. If you're logging in for the first time in December, there's some great campaigns coming. And then other than that, I think, remember there's a 20th anniversary that we've got to look forward to. So we're in the middle of the Vivacious Resurgence. So there could be some more content coming in 2021, but other than that, I think we can all agree we hope to never see a year like 2020 in our lifetime again, at least. So yeah, we will appreciate everybody listening in. We will have we haven't talked about it yet, but we're going to do it at some point, even though Rua lives in the future. So his New Year's will be different than ours, but we're going to plan something for New Year's for an episode. Don't know exactly what we're going to talk about yet, but make sure you check back. And we appreciate you listening.
Yeah, that episode could potentially be quite inclusive.